Is WandaVision hiding a Marvel villain in plain sight? They are an unusual couple of episodes. Last Friday, WandaVision premiered on Disney Plus with a double dose of sitcom surrealness that has fans' brains buzzing like so many beekeepers emerging from so many sewers. With its riffs on classic sitcoms, a metric ton of Easter eggs which we broke down in excruciating detail, and the show's pervasive sense of dread, WandaVision feels unlike anything else in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that we've seen thus far. So over the course of the series, it seems like we're going to see more and more cracks in the facade of Wanda and Vision's seemingly perfect suburban existence. And considering the last time that we saw Vision, we learned his head is very destructible, contrary to what Wanda tells us in episode 1 of WandaVision, we have plenty of questions about what's going on here, namely, how is Vision back in the land of the living? While fans have wild theories about who's really behind all of this now that the first 2 episodes are out in the wild, one theory about Emma Caulfield's domineering Dottie caught our eye. Now, according to this theory, she is actually a major Marvel character in disguise, and her true identity could have massive implications for the rest of WandaVision and Spider-Man 3 and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness as well. However, in order to explain this, we're going to have to spoil the first 2 episodes of WandaVision. So if you haven't seen them yet, step inside the cabinet of mystery and disappear until this is all over.
Abracadabra! Ta-ta!
Alright, are all the spoiler phobes gone? Great, let's get into it, shall we? Now, this theory, first posited by Reddit user Unknown, which we spotted via Esquire, puts forward the idea that Dottie isn't just this suburban control freak, she's actually the villain Mephisto in disguise. And while the idea that Mephisto is somehow behind this metatextual mind prison that Wanda and Vision seem to be trapped in, that's not anything new. We've been speculating on it for months now. It could be our first concrete clue, though, as to who Mephisto might be within the context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, the theory does offer some evidence to back this up, and it mostly happens after Wanda finds a mysterious red helicopter in her rose bushes towards the beginning of episode 2. As Wanda and Agnes, who may or may not be the witch Agatha Harkness in disguise, make their way towards the planning committee meeting to raise money for the children, we get a couple of seemingly innocuous disclaimers about Dottie. While en route to Dottie's house, Agnes tells Wanda
her roses bloom under penalty of death,
and that Dottie
is the key to everything in this town.
Now, according to Agnes, if you get in with Dottie, it'll be smooth sailing from here on out. Then, in the next scene during the planning committee meeting proper, Dottie chides another member of the committee by telling her that the devil's in the details, to which Agnes replies,
"That's not the only place he is."
Wink. Now, if you take these at face value, they all seem like perfectly reasonable sitcom-y things to say, especially about an overbearing neighbor on a total and utter power trip. But there's more than meets the eye to nearly everything in WandaVision, so let's break it down. The line about the roses could infer that Dottie can make the impossible happen, but at great cost. Her roses will bloom under penalty of death. If she is in fact Mephisto, she can make anything happen for the right price. Now, given that Mephisto is Marvel's version of the devil, he's usually striking some kind of Faustian bargain or another with various characters, cough cough Spider-Man Brand New Day, which explains Agnes's bit about Dottie being the key to this town. One of the most popular theories about WandaVision is that a grief-stricken Wanda Maximoff makes a deal with the devil, in this case Mephisto, for a chance at domestic bliss with the Vision, who's one of the few characters that did not return to the land of the living at the end of Avengers Endgame, which is, pretty tragic. He's had a rough life. The idea that getting in with Dottie means smooth sailing is another hint that she can make all your problems go away, and again, there's probably going to be a hidden cost to all of this. Last but not least, we come to the most overt line about the devil not just being in the details, and assuming this hammy remark is meant to be taken literally, that's a giant wink and a nudge to the viewer at home that Dottie is more than she seems, and her tendency to make life hell for people on the committee might be due to the fact that she's secretly Mephisto, aka the devil. Now, something else that could support this theory is the planning committee's mantra of "for the children," which is creepy as hell, especially considering we see approximately 0 kids in town. Now, this could be an allusion to the comics in which Wanda envisions twin boys who, thanks to the trailers we know will appear in future episodes, they turned out not to be real. Rather, they were shards of Mephisto's soul that Wanda manifested into the family she could never have. I don't know about you, but that sure sounds like the type of thing that someone would make a deal with the devil about, if you ask me. But that said, while this is a fun theory, it does feel a bit like a red herring, because when Sword reaches out to Wanda through the radio during that episode, Dottie seems seems confused, scared, and upset by this shattering of the in-universe fourth wall, but in a very different way than Wanda does. So maybe she's playing along, but it makes me think that Dottie isn't this devious demon after all. Now, there's still a chance that Mephisto could be the big bad pulling the strings behind the scenes. Maybe he's still hiding in plain sight as Senior scratches the bunny rabbit. Who knows? Other theories out there speculate that Dottie is actually Clea, a sorceress from the Dark Dimension and the niece of Dr. Strange villain Dormammu. And that would provide a direct tie to Doctor Strange too, but let's be real, that feels like a bit of a stretch. So who is Dottie anyway? Well, as we pointed out in our Easter egg breakdown video, we think that she's a very different Marvel character, one who's far less recognizable, named Arcana, a superhero with magic-based powers who is part of the Squadron Supreme, a group of heroes from a parallel reality to Earth 616, the primary universe in the comics. Now, in the world of Westview, many of the characters we've met thus far have subtle connections to the comics. One of Vision's co-workers, the mustachioed Phil Jones, is seen standing next to Dottie during the animated Bewitched-style opening of Episode 2. Now, in the comics, Phil Jones is married to Arcana, which makes their pairing here all the more eyebrow-raising. And look, it could be another fake-out, but this feels like a convenient doorway into the multiverse that we know the MCU is heading towards, and it's the kind of deep-cut comics reference they love to give us, especially in a show like WandaVision. Then again, between that creepy sword beekeeper guy and Wanda herself rewinding time to suit her needs, we're gonna have our hands full figuring out who exactly is behind all of this, who's masterminding this supernatural situation. Here's hoping we'll get even more clues when Episode 3 drops later this week. Now that said, we will keep you posted on all things WandaVision over on Nerdist.com, but in the meantime, tell me, who do you think Dottie actually is? What do you think of this fan theory? And who do you think is the real villain of WandaVision? Let's discuss in the comments below. And for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.